this lesson, we are going to get to learn more calligraphy letters, and I hope that you're ready and eager to start. Let's start by doing a quick review of the lines that we are using on our lowercase guide sheet. So we have the lines right here. So what are these lines called? They are the slant lines. And remember that we want to keep the letters that we write at a consistent slant of 13 degrees. And these lines help us to do that. Now, what about this line? This is the line that the letters rest on. So what is this line called? That is the baseline. What about this line? This line is called the top line in cursive. What do we call this in calligraphy? This is the body line. Now, what is this space that we have here? The space where you write your letters. That is the X height. And that is how tall our lowercase letters will be. Now, if we have descenders, there is a space under the baseline that is called, any guesses? Okay, descender space. Now, you should have your lowercase guide sheet with you. And why do we use a guide sheet? Well, it is very, very helpful to have these lines here because they help us to know how we should control, well, they help us to control the height and the slant of each stroke. So as we get ready to practice some, make sure that you're sitting tall, keep your paper parallel to the desk, or you can tilt it just a little bit if it's more comfortable for you. I do that many times. Mr. Roberts, who is an expert, said we could do that. So, and if you're left-handed, you definitely want to tilt your paper. We also want to make sure that we keep the correct pen angle and that we're holding our pen correctly. Remember that we also want to try to move the paper and not our arm, and that might take us a little to get used to, but we can do it. So think about holding your pen at a 45-degree angle to the paper. You can draw a box with a 90-degree corner and then draw a line to cut that angle in half. Let me show you what I mean. So I have my sheet here. I can do it you can do it anywhere you want, okay? But if I do it here, oops, it's not too straight. There, okay, and I cut it in half, and that is how my pen needs to be. That's the angle that I need to keep it on. So remember when we're practicing, okay? It is also helpful to be very still when we write our strokes, really. Even holding our breath. This will help us to have smoother looking letters. Now, let's look at our calligraphy tip for this lesson. I broke it into 3 different slides, but it's the same calligraphy tip that you have on page 20. And I just did that so you can see the example. So here's the calligraphy tip. Use the most space between 2 straight strokes. And here we have an example. Use a little less space between a straight and a curved stroke. And here we have an example. And use the least space between 2 curved strokes. And here we have an example. Okay. Now I have a sheet here. You should have the same guide sheet with you. And if you can see, look at the space here. See? But then if you go, these are 2 straight strokes, but then if you go down here, we have a straight and a curved stroke. There is less space there. And then down here with 2 curved strokes, you see, we have less space there. Now, let's practice a little doing some strokes together on our work text, page 20. And that way we can be ready for our practice later. Okay, so let's just do a few of these strokes together. Remember our 45-degree angle, that's always a little bit hard for me. So I have to be very still and think about it. So let's do one set of these here. Well, We need to practice a lot more. Okay, but now in this lesson, we are going to focus on calligraphy letters M and N. So, let me show you here the letters. I have them here, and I'm gonna give you the stroke description. So here's the letter M. For the letter M, we're gonna make a short diagonal right, and then drop, and then retrace and swing right, drop, retrace, swing right, drop, and curve. Okay, and for the letter N, I have it right here. The letter N, it's very similar to the letter M. So short diagonal right and drop, retrace, swing right, drop, and curve. Now, let's watch Mr. Roberts as he teaches us how to make the letter M and the letter N.
Okay, now the next two letters that we're going to be doing are the M and the N, and they are both made in one stroke. Stay consistent there with your letter slant. There's the M. Let me do that again. Okay. And the N is exactly the same. We just don't go as far as we do with the M. Okay, so let's make a word with those. And we can use all of the ones that we have already used. Let's write the word men first. Okay. Now, let's talk about the letter spacing between your letters. We haven't talked about that yet, okay? But there's a rule of thumb that we want to go through, and I'll tell you what I think as a professional when I go through these letters and see if that makes any sense to you. But we have to consider the space between the letters, between all of the letters as you do these. Now the most space that you're going to have is between two straight strokes. And this would be considered a straight stroke right here because it's mostly, there's just a little bit of curve at the top and a little at the bottom, but most of it is straight. Okay, and we'll do another one. This is the letter I. And this is the most amount of space that you will have between two letters. That's space between two straight strokes. Let's go to another word and talk about the amount of space between a curved stroke and a straight stroke. Okay? That's not hardly as much space as between two straight strokes. So let's do the word hammer. So we have a straight stroke right here. And we have a curved stroke right here. Now here again we have a straight stroke. And a straight stroke at the beginning of the M. And this is the most amount of space right here. So we have that again. We have the most amount of space in between the two M's. But now we have a straight stroke and we're getting ready to put a curved stroke in, the E. So we don't hardly have as much space there. And then the same thing, a curved stroke and a straight stroke between the E and the R. Okay? Now, my rule of thumb is this. Let me just make these strokes for you. We have, I'll make the stroke taller so you can see what we're doing here. We have the amount of space between two curved strokes. Let me make another one. That's not a very good stroke. Between two straight strokes, and this is the most amount of space. And then we have the amount of space between a straight stroke and a curved stroke. Okay? And this space is just a little less than this. And then you have the amount of space between two curved strokes. That's the least amount of space that you will have. And they will almost be touching. Now, my rule of thumb is this. This is what I like to think about. Imagine that we have a balloon filled with water, and I'm having to put that balloon within this space right here. That balloon is going to assume the amount of space that's between two letters. So here, because we've got to squeeze it in this little area right here, it's going to bulge up a little bit. And down at the bottom. But that balloon still has the same amount of water in it. Because this is the least amount of space right here, it's really going to bulge up at the top and the bottom. Okay, but we still have the same amount of water in it. Okay, so this is a good way to think of the spaces between your letters. Now, let's make a word that has two curved strokes with it. Okay, and that would be, for instance, the word ocean. And you see it's almost touching there. And here we have two straight strokes between the A and the N. Okay? So we have the amount of space between two curved strokes, the amount of space between two straight strokes.
Now make sure you finish work text page 20. Make sure you work on your strokes and also your letters. And also, if you can, I want you to work on this page. Here we have again more letters for you to practice, and try writing these words. I know we haven't done the I and the L and the H and the R, but you saw Mr. Roberts make these two. So just give it a try and get more practice in. So that's all for this lesson. See you next time.